So, down in Greeley, Colorado, a billion-dollar development project didn't just break ground. It pretty much broke the city's political landscape in two. And after a shocking defeat at the ballot box, the city council made a move that has everyone scratching their heads and asking, were they extending an olive branch, or were they just playing a much, much longer game? Today, let's break down the politics of this citizen committee. Okay, let's dive right in. At the heart of all this was a grassroots group called Greeley Demands Better. And their message? Super simple, super powerful. The city's huge catalyst project was putting all the financial risk on the taxpayers while basically guaranteeing all the profits for a private developer. And man, that idea just caught fire. And when we talk about risk, we're not kidding. This was huge. The total scope of the project, we're talking a massive entertainment and housing district, a water park, a new hockey arena, the whole shebang, was pegged at a staggering $1.1 billion. Look, this wasn't just some new strip mall. This was a generational bet on the entire city's future. So to get this thing off the ground without asking voters to approve new debt, the city used this really controversial financing tool called Certificates of Participation, or COPs. So what are they? Well, they're basically a workaround that lets the city raise money by, in effect, mortgaging its own buildings. And this move, it became the absolute flashpoint for residents who felt like their right to vote on debt was just being completely bypassed. Now get this. The collateral for this whole deal wasn't just some spare land. The city put 46 of its most critical public buildings on the line. Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking City Hall itself, the main police station, fire stations. So for a lot of folks, this wasn't about development anymore. This was about protecting the city's crown jewels. Okay, so all that public anger, it wasn't just talk. Nearly 9,000 citizens signed a petition to force a special election, which put the project's zoning right on the ballot for the whole city to decide. It was your classic David versus Goliath showdown. Regular citizens taking on City Hall. And guess what? David won. With a huge turnout of over 20,000 voters, the zoning was repealed, and not by a little. The message couldn't have been clearer. The people of Greeley had flat out rejected the council's plan and were demanding a totally new direction. But that's just one side of the coin, right? You have city leaders like Mayor Pro Tem Melissa McDonald who were just devastated. For them, this project was a chance to finally shed Greeley's old reputation and really raise its profile in the booming northern Colorado region. So the vote wasn't just losing on a policy, it was a real gut punch to their civic pride. Now, after a public defeat that clear, you'd think the city council would kind of, lay low for a bit, maybe regroup. But nope. What they did next, in the immediate aftermath, was both really surprising and, from a strategic perspective, pretty fascinating. Just look at this timeline. Get this. Less than 1 month after voters slammed the door on this project, Mayor Dale Hall announces that they're forming a brand new citizen committee, and its job is to review the project's future. Now, on the surface, this sounds great, right? The mayor framed it as a direct response to the vote, a new way to be transparent and get the public involved. It sounded like the city was finally actually ready to listen. But here's the million-dollar question. Was this for real? I mean, think about it. You just got handed a massive political loss. Why on earth would you create a committee that seems to empower the very people who just beat you? This is where the story gets really interesting. Well, once you start to unpack the political math here, the whole thing starts to look a whole lot less like an olive branch and a whole lot more like a really slick strategic move. In fact, this committee serves several key functions that all seem to benefit the city council's long-term goals. Okay, so first up, that 6-month term the committee has, that creates a tactical cooling off period. That election was super heated, super emotional. By pushing any new decisions a full half year down the road, the council gives itself some breathing room, and that time is priceless. And this delay, it's kind of a political masterstroke, really. It lets all that public anger just cool down. It also completely reframes the debate from this big, passionate fight over risk to a kind of dry, technical review of data and planning docs. And here's the kicker. It's designed to wear out a grassroots movement. It is really hard to keep that protest energy going through months of bureaucratic meetings. All right, second point. This committee is an amazing tool for controlling the story. Remember, the council totally lost control of the narrative during the election. Well, this is their shot to get it back, but in a much more subtle way. Just think about it for a second. You've got city staff controlling all the info the committee sees. acting as the gatekeepers. The project's benefits can now be discovered by this group of so-called neutral citizens instead of being pushed by politicians. So now, if the committee comes back and recommends a new, slightly different project, what happens? The council can say, hey, this wasn't our idea. This is what the community wanted. It's perfect political cover. And that brings us to the third piece of this puzzle. The whole thing is a textbook example of a political tactic called co-optation. It's basically the art of bringing your opponents inside the system, which more often than not ends up neutralizing them. So the city comes out and says, hey, serving on this committee is going to be a huge time commitment. We're talking long meetings every week. You combine that with a formal code of conduct, and what you're really doing is turning passionate protesters into buttoned-up committee members who have to play by the rules. You're absorbing their energy right into the system they were fighting. But wait, there's more. The committee isn't the only play the city's making here. While everyone's eyes are on this new citizen group, the council has been making some other quiet, strategic moves in the background to make sure its vision for West Greeley stays on track. And this right here, this is where you see the 3D chess game being played. So, move number 1, use the committee to manage public perception and buy time. Move number 2, you go ahead and finish a $17 million water line out to the development area. You're literally creating facts on the ground, making future development seem inevitable. And move number 3, a council seat opens up. Do you risk another election? Nope. You appoint someone, solidifying your alignment. So when you put all of these pieces together, the committee, the water line, the appointment, you start to see two completely different stories taking shape about what's really going on in Greeley. So which is it? Is this responsive government, a city council that is genuinely trying to listen and build back trust after voters sent a crystal clear message? Or is this just really, really smart strategic management, where a citizen committee is just one of many tools being used to handle dissent and make sure that billion-dollar vision survives to fight another day? Now, in the end, this whole tale of two Greeleys leaves us with a really fundamental question about how our local governments work. Because what happens next there is going to tell us a whole lot about what it really means when a government says it's listening. Is it the start of a real conversation or just the next phase of the calculation?